I'll start the recording anyway. Okay. So okay, yes. So you will start this way. I'll ask your overview on the project and do you, the project that was written on your resume. Maybe that's one you are going to talk about. Have you gone through that, or we can? That's okay. If not, you can talk about that project company name anyway. That's fine. Or if not, you can just go with the generic. Yeah, you can name that project
Uh,
company name. That's fine. Okay. And
right.
then
Actually, until now, I've been preparing the generic one.
that's
So,
okay. Only
in
thing,
my
yeah, only thing will change the company name, maybe a little bit here and there. That we can. That's okay. We can do that later. So just standard migration, maybe that should be fine. Okay. Then with third, then I'll ask you the technical deep questions. Others will, I'll ask others question as well. But let's finish your, and then others can listen. Okay, and they can comment as well. So okay, we'll get started. So Vidit, tell me, why don't you give your overview about yourself and your project. What are you doing?
Sure. Good evening, all. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Bidit Das. I have more than 5 years of experience in the IT industry. For the last 4 years, I've been working primarily in the data engineering, both with on-prem setup as well as cloud. My primary role in all the projects is data engineer, as I'm responsible for writing various data ingestion module in PySpark. I've used PySpark both in EMR and Glue jobs. My last project was a cloud data migration project where we had the data warehouse in Teradata on-prem, which we had to migrate to Redshift in AWS, and we had to re-engineer a lot of Informatica-based mapping to PySpark jobs in the cloud. So uh, this is my primary role. Uh, Apart from this, 20 to 30% of my work also involves kind of platform engineering, where I'm responsible for looking over things like CFTs, IAMs, CloudWatch, VPNs, system manager, etc., to ensure smooth flow of data in the data pipeline. So that covers my overall responsibility. So if I summarize, 80% of my work is directly involved with data engineering and cloud and maintaining data pipelines using PySpark. And 20% of my job is mostly like towards working alongside of platform engineers. So yeah, that's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So you didn't tell the data engineering services. You are only focused on PySpark. You didn't talk about Glue, Lambda, S3, Redshift, right? These are the services I'm comfortable with, right? The primary AWS skill set I am comfortable with is this, right? So at least you can cover that. Not just focus only PySpark, right? Those that should also you can cover that. And
Right.
okay.
Just a minute. Let me write it as a note so that I'll.
Yeah, that's something you need to tell, not just PySpark. PySpark is one. I mean, you see, PySpark is okay, right? But PySpark is one out of 10 things. That's 10 different things are there, right? PySpark may or may not be their core skill set. Yes, PySpark is many of the places it is, but there are so many other things in the data engineering side you need to configure. You need to know the process, right? Those things are also important. So you are now, as if you are saying nothing else is important. This PySpark, I know that's all I need, right? That's the kind of impression it's creating. Right? So it should not be like that. So,
Uh,
uh, so
right.
I'm pretty comfortable with S3 storage, creating raw. So these are the skills. These are the different AWS services I'm comfortable with. I work with S3. With EMR, with Redshift, with Glue jobs, Athena, and Lambda functions. So, and we're using these services to create data lakes. Then building data warehouses on cloud, right? The data warehouses on Redshift. So that way you cover the whole the services and what you do along with that. Okay. Don't just
Right. Right.
focus purely PySpark. PySpark is one out of 10 things. Okay. Others. So
Right, right. I was planning to actually cover it when they like asked me to
okay.
like talk about the data flow, explain about my project in
No, no, I
detail.
know,
So,
but
but that's fine.
yeah, okay. So yeah, why don't you tell me about your project? What's the current project or the last project you did? Why don't you go over it a little more detail so that we can have a discussion
So,
around it.
Yeah, so in my last project, we were like working on migrating a platform. Basically, in the last project, what we were, just a minute. Yeah, uh, I messed up. Okay, let me start once again.
No, no,
So
you
in
will
my
mess up.
last,
There is nothing, right? Even if you mess up, you don't have to start. It's not. You are not writing a. You are not reading a script anyway. Oh, I missed this line. I have to start from that line. You don't have to think that way. If you think that way, then you'll always miss. Okay. There is never a perfect
right,
thing. You will always remember those things, right? So you'll always miss. But thing is that how to recover from that, that's also technique. That's also technique. Okay, that's okay. If you miss the line, it's nothing is going to, you don't have to, okay, hold on, let me start from the first line. You're not reading a essay, right? So you need to know how to quickly change your gear and come back to the pace again, right? So that's something.
right. I usually leave the line if I forget to say something. Like in case of like real interview, I just leave that part and
That's okay. You
include
can
it
always come back,
afterwards.
and if it's a lot, you can mention that. That's okay. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, let me start. So basically, in my last project, we worked on a data migration project, and we are migrating our data warehouse, which we had on Teradata, to Redshift and the Redshift in the AWS. So what we did here basically was after the history data was migrated from Teradata to Redshift, we created a lot of PySpark jobs to move data through various stages or through various layers. So here data was first brought to the inbound. So basically, we did this through various stages, and the stages involved like different layers, for which we used S3 buckets, and those layers were called named something as inbound landing layer, raw layer, and curated layer. So how we managed the data in here was we first brought the data to inbound bucket which was basically done by the data ingestion team, and they used Informatica to do the same. Once the data was in the inbound bucket, it was our responsibility to handle the data. So we got the data from inbound bucket to raw bucket, and while doing so, we performed few file level checks such as duplicate file check, zero byte file check, and etc. So once we were done like processing the data and we had the purest form of the data in our raw bucket, we again used PySpark scripts to curate the data and move it to the curation bucket. And while doing so, while moving the data to curation layer, we perform few more checks, such as like data integrity check, as per the standards set by the business analyst. We also like converted the data to Parquet format for easier read. We created a snapshot of the data for the data science folks. We also like integrated the data coming from different sources at different times. So our final data was ready in the curation layer, which we finally like um, yeah, yeah. Our data was ready in the curation layer, which we finally moved to the Redshift staging area. We just truncated and copied the data to the Redshift staging area, and after that, from staging area, we moved it to the final layer of the Redshift. And while doing so, we created pack and dimension table, took care of the slowly changing dimensions, etc. Basically, after moving the data into the Redshift, the data was ready to be used by the business users, but we still had another one layer after this, which was Redshift semantic layer, where we flattened the data so that it could be used by the visualization team like Tableau and QuickSight. So that's kind of a basic overview what we did in our project. It's a basic like overall view of our project. Yeah.
So we missed the complete, the volumetric information about the project. You said it's right, how many tables you moved, how much data, right? Again, so the way you are saying, right, it's like as if you did it one time, right? Yeah, I truncated and other. No, it's you are not truncating. The way you are saying, I truncated and load the staging table. So instead of saying that, you are not doing one time, you truncate and load it, right? This is a process you are establishing, right? So don't say in that verb, whatever that pattern, right? So yes, you are saying from the curated to Redshift staging, right? The data is usually copied, and that's a truncate and load process. It's not like you did one time. No, I did truncate and load. No, it's not like that. That's something you are establishing as a process which is going to run, right? And not even you are doing it for one table or many. It's happening for every table. So the language will be different, how you express it, right? But anyway, those are some of the things you need to. You are not talking as a one thread. You did this one. I copied one table from here. Here, no. You have to think as a project you are doing. You are moving hundreds of tables, right? So your language should think of that way, right? So again, some of the statements be direct. You don't have to make it round, right? Go direct, straight. Right? This, right? Okay. Um, okay. So volumetric information you have to say, right? This is the data migration from Teradata to what you call Redshift based or AWS based Redshift data warehouse. The total volume of data is straightforward, right? This is total as part of the migration. We moved this. As part of the migration, we moved around close to maybe 100 terabytes of data, which was on Teradata, right? Close to 150 tables. And then as part of the migration, again, we did the history migration. Once the history data moved, then we established our incremental data load, which right, building data modules or building what you call modules to load the incremental data that's coming every day, right? The daily jobs, right, basically. So maybe you want to talk about a little bit of history on incremental daily jobs as well, okay? As a process that you are establishing. Then also you have to touch upon as well as orchestration. The jobs run every day and some jobs run weekly and monthly. Those are all orchestrated through step functions, right? And there is lambda function which is used to trigger the step function. That also you might want to. So that will be another question. So can you explain your data flow, the process flow in the migration or data process flow that you build it on AWS? Data
So
flow
the
as a
data
process.
flow was basic.
Yeah.
All right. The data flow was basically between the different layers, as I mentioned, from outside source like Teradata and various other sources to the inbound bucket, and from there
No,
to
no, no,
raw.
no, no, no. Vidit, once you
Uh,
migrate from Teradata to Redshift, Teradata
uh-huh.
is not your source, right? Source will be typically mainframe systems.
Okay.
In the on-prem, from this is a flow in the on-prem. The source data will be coming from mainframe systems. Okay. So typically, Informatica Power Exchange is a tool. It will extract data from mainframe source systems, load into staging table of Redshift, then data mart tables of Redshift. Teradata. Then some semantic tables in
Okay,
Teradata.
probably.
That is the
Okay, probably this part they didn't know. Probably that I think
yeah.
this is a gap in communication. So you are see the whole goal is to migrate the Teradata platform to cloud. Once you move it, are you going to keep the Teradata again? No, you are going to get rid of Teradata, right? So if you are getting rid of Teradata, where the data will come from? It will go back to the source. What is the original source? Those are the mainframe. Okay. So originally it was coming from mainframe building the Teradata. Now you replace the Teradata with Redshift. And we need to get rid of Teradata, right? So now the data is coming from the source, which is mainframe, which we typically call system of records, SOR. Okay, system of records, they typically call in that language. So once you migrate the history, you establish your daily jobs, just bring it from the source. Why you have to go back to the Teradata again, right? Because the goal was to get rid of it, right, at the end. Anyway, just for your understanding, maybe you can all of you probably adopt the same kind of principle. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
All
So
right. So basically, what is happening? We are taking all the Teradata data to Redshift through using what is that? Snowball. We use that to take all the Teradata to Redshift, and after that, incremental data is coming from my mainframe sources. So is that what is happening actually?
Mainframe sources. Primarily
Okay.
mainframe sources. Yeah.
All right. So let me start. Let me start again. So basically, to explain the data flow, we can start from here. Like as I mentioned, we had different layers, like landing bucket layer. We had curation layer, and we had a raw layer, and we also had a curation layer. So the entire data flow was like the data used to flow from the mainframes to the landing layer, from landing layer to raw layer to curation layer, and from there to Redshift staging, and finally to Redshift. So the entire thing was
Finally to
the entire
Redshift.
thing was
Okay. Finally,
sorry.
and he said Redshift landing, staging, then finally to Redshift. It's already landed. Okay. So
Yeah, no, finally to Redshift semantic layer.
yeah.
Sorry, that's the final layer.
Mm.
And final to Redshift semantic layer. So the entire thing was basically handled through kind of job orchestration. Proper kind of like orchestration was set up to handle the entire data flow. The data was moved from the first part, like moving the data from Informatica to the landing bucket, was handled by a different team, data ingestion team, and they were using Informatica to do so. So once the data landed in our landing bucket, we had set up a Lambda function which would trigger a step function. So once the step function was triggered, it would handle the flow of data starting from the landing bucket till the Redshift semantic layer. So the entire process was handled through the step function using by the user DAGs. So this explains the entire data flow, how it used to flow between the different layers as we discussed before.
Hmm. Okay. So yeah, I need to refine a little bit. I think something not coming out okay. But anyway, yeah, that's something reading in using a lot of indirect statements rather than direct statements. This was used. This was not. Right. So there's some of those way something it's not coming out okay, but that's okay. So you need to practice more. So other thing is okay. So you said you are creating what? Inbound raw viewable. Sorry, inbound raw and curated.
And
What's happening between raw and curated?
so basically between raw to curated, right? So basically, while moving the data from raw to curated, we perform few of the checks, few of the checks performing null value check in mandatory column, like creating snapshot data for the data science folks, as I discussed earlier. We perform data integrity checks, like that is to check if the data of the column lies within the business constraint as defined by business analysts. We also like do data integration here, like data coming at various times from different sources are all combined here into a one set. We also finally convert the data into a Parquet format, which is like unified compressed format for easier read. So this is what we do while moving the data from raw to curated.
Do you carry history in all the layers, or what is it? How do you have 4 layers? Are you carrying history everywhere, or what? Or you carry daily data? What's the what do?
These are basically the incremental. These are basically the incremental load. So this data is live. These are basically the batch jobs that are daily flowing. These are daily
Oh,
batch jobs that are flowing between different layers.
okay. So does the raw layer has full history, or it's only incremental today's data? That's what I'm asking. What about the curated? Does it have history data for the whole 3 years, 5 years, or it's only the incremental data?
Uh, Raw data do have history.
Not raw data, raw layer. Okay.
So, raw layer do have history.
Yeah, so that's something I have talked about already, right? Your inbound bucket is truncate load, right? You load it every day, it's temporary, you stage it, then you do some checks and move it to raw. Raw is where you are building the history. Every day you are getting added, right? You started with history, you are adding, right? So basically you're maintaining the data history on raw, and it's as is, whatever is coming from the source. So understand the concept, right? So why when I say between raw and curated, yes, you can give a reference. So you can give a context to it. Why are you doing the curation? So you say the data is coming raw. The raw data is coming from the source. So we need to verify the check. We need to sanitize the data before we move it to the final data matter and semantic layer, right? So for that reason, we do various record level, column level checks to make sure things like there is null values, mandatory null columns are there, data integrity checks are maintained between different files. Then data integration, or what do you call I would say aggregations happens for different feeds which are coming at different time to create single feed, right? Then as well as we are creating migrating, converting it to Parquet format to for better read, right, for optimized read. Right? So give a context anyway. Okay, so
Just one question. Like, suppose something is not in my mind and I give it pause of something like 30 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds. Like, will that be odd or it's okay, like natural? Like, something is not coming to my mind immediately, instantly, and ask them, just let me think a little bit. I'll just tell them that it will be fine.
think about, yeah, unless it's a big, unless they're asking a question, complex question, let's see, situational question, you can say, yeah, let me think about it. But does regular things,
Okay.
if they're asking, hey, give me your flow, that's you are not thinking, you have done it. You can come out right away, right? If they're asking a situational question, is okay, if this happens, what will you do? Then you can say, let me think. What? Okay, you are saying this. So you can talk over it. Okay, you are saying this. Let me think. You can say that, but not something you have done it and you are thinking that can't happen, right? Typically, right?
Right.
You done it, but yes, there are some problem they're asking which you have not done it. You are trying to find a solution. That is fine. So let me think. Give me a couple of seconds. I'm thinking through it, right? That is fine. But
Okay.
if you know the stuff, know the stuff. If you see, what are you afraid of not remembering? If you are not remembering something, if you remember, if you are not remembering A, you will remember B, right? If you are not somebody is asking, hey, give me the flow. If you don't remember what is raw, maybe go ahead and talk about the curated, right? Then you will come back to raw, right? So
Right.
there are
No,
many.
actually, I remember everything. I can say it, but like organizing and saying it in a proper manner, that's what like I was asking about, thinking about. I can tell it, but it might not be very clear. So that's
Yeah, how many things are there here anyway, right? At the end, it should be get organized. It's a very simple flow, and every flow, you have what happens in every layer anyway, right? So
right.
so how much experience do you have on data warehouse? You
I
go to
have
data warehouse?
yeah, we are, because we have been doing migration and this data warehouse. I do have some experience in data warehouse, and I worked with like data warehouse properly since last 2 years, but that's not exactly my domain. I do know the basics of data warehouse as we're working on migrating,
Like what?
migrating the data.
You have to tell basics of what. If you are saying basics, give some examples. For example, I understand the basic data modeling concept, the star schema model. I understand what is fact dimension. I understand how the slowly changing dimension works. Give examples. If it's just a generic statement, it's not going to fly well, right? So if somebody asking, okay, what do you know about data? So how much experience you have? Do you have something? So don't just say, hey, I have 2 years experience. That's anybody can say 2 3 years, right? You tell some names, something, then it's like, okay, yeah, this guy knows. Right?
Right.
So those are the thing
Uh,
concepts you already know, right? So you have to bring those out. I know the basic design or the modeling principles, like the how the data is modeled in data house, like star schema model, where you have facts and dimensions. Like that, things like facts will carry measures, dimensions will carry attributes. I also know some of the operations. We also deal with the operations, typical in ingestion challenges, you would say, right, with slowly changing dimensions. The concept or the technique of slowly changing dimensions. and incremental load, right? Those kind of things also we do as a data engineer, right? So I'm not expert in data warehouse, but as part of data migration, building data warehouse on EDW, or is not EDW on Redshift, we or I, right, have built the modules to for daily jobs, right, which are incremental load jobs, incremental load jobs, as well as SCD techniques or SCD operations to populate the fact and dimension table. Okay, so that should have it very clear so that you can pause and say, but your thought process should continue evolving as you are saying. You know what you need. You know in advance what you are saying. You are just pausing to get the word and all that, which is fine. But you know what you are saying. That should come first. And then you're just finding words to express it. Right? So what is slowly changing dimension, by the way?
Slowly changing dimension is basically like changing of existing records as more and more new records are added. So this is like handling of new records whenever they're added to the data warehouse, and there are basically three different ways this is done, which is named under as slowly changing dimension 1 or SCD1, SCD2, and SCD3. So in SCD1, basically when a new record is added about the same, when a new record is sorry, yeah, whenever a new record is added, whenever a data about a record is changed, the new record replaces the old record completely, and no trace of the old record remains. Whereas in case of slowly changing dimension 2, when an existing record is updated, we maintain the past, like we maintain the history record along with adding the new record, but we also like update few of the variables for the past record, like effective start date, effective end date, and if that record is live or not. Then finally there is slowly changing dimension 3, where we basically use versioning of different records. So in my experience, I have mostly like dealt with slowly changing dimension 1 and slowly changing dimension 2. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Oh, sorry, I was talking to someone else. Okay, what did you say? Tell me again.
Yeah, I can repeat it. No worries, I'll repeat it. So basically, slowly changing dimension. Should I start like what is slowly changing dimension?
No, what is slowly changing dimension?
Okay. Slowly changing dimension is basically a technique in data warehouse where you handle the updating of currently existing records. So this is basically
Not just
done in three
currently existing
different
records,
ways.
right? It can be currently
Currently existing records and new records.
So basically, how to manage the
Adding new.
history, right? Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, okay.
So basically, you do it on three different ways, which is named as slowly changing dimension 1 or SCD1, SCD2, and SCD3. So in SCD1, what happens is whenever you update a currently existing record, it basically replaces the old record and no traces of the old record remains. And new record, you add it as usual. Whereas in SCD2 or slowly changing dimension 2, what you do is whenever an existing record is updated, you maintain the history of the old record. You like update few of the parameters like effective end date and that the record is no longer active. Like you set the boolean to false under active, and you add the new record. And
Okay,
if you
one
have to
thing.
add a completely
Yeah. So one thing, try to
uh,
not tell it as academic way. I know you don't have experience, but things sometimes become more academic as if you are explaining something. Try to change your tone and everything to seems like it's more experience, right? I know you explain it all that, but more becomes more academic answer, right? Typically, so it's
and
don't. I know it will slowly, but anyway, that's okay. But you can say, typical the history. We add the three additional columns. This. You don't have to go into detail, very detailed one by one. You don't have to tell that much in this, right? So we added to maintain the history, right? We add three additional columns, which is start date, end date, and your what you call current indicator, and we add the right. We update those values, and for the new records, we also update value with the current. current time standard and all that. Okay. So just go move on. Don't wait to explain every. It becomes too academic. That's the only thing I go. Where it sounds very academic at the end, right? We should not do that. Okay.
Right. Right.
You
And
know what I'm saying?
finally, there is
You are explaining, but it sounds very academic. Just as if somebody teacher is asking a question, you are explaining that. It should not sound like that as well. Okay, a little bit more so different anyway. So that way, okay. So all right. So
uh,
how did you implement SCD type 2?
uh, uh, one thing I have skipped yesterday type 2 from my preparation for the timing. Like I'm looking at other things like the SpicePark part. So like,
Okay.
can I answer it afterwards?
Yeah.
It's one thing I just
So
skipped for.
hmm. so so you talked about what is a surrogate key in what do you call data warehouse? Do you know what is a surrogate key?
Uh, so
Surrogate key,
uh,
like the fact and dimension. You talked about fact and dimensions. There are some keys called surrogate key. Do you know what those are?
I think these are the surrogate key are the primary key for the dimension table.
Okay.
And we
So,
basically use it to refer to the we use the surrogate key to refer to the dimension table from the fact tables.
no, that's not right. Okay. Refer to the dimension table from fact table. What is that? There is no such statement like that. Refer to the fact dimension table from fact table. That's not how you say or anyway. So surrogate keys are system generated um, keys, right? Typically numeric values, right? Which are used to uniquely identify the records in the dimension table. Okay, these are system generated values like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Typically sequence. Many times they are database sequences. They are used to uniquely identify a record. If I have 100 customers, I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 to 100, right? This is the main purpose. And these are typically numeric values. Right? And why they used all details, you don't have to go into that's more detailed thing. So it's a so it's a uniquely identified. It's uniquely identifies the record. For example, you can always say, for example, if there is a customer table, it identifies each customer in the table using a numeric number like 1 to 100. Okay. Uniquely identified. Okay. All right. So you also talked about flattening the things and all that. What else you do apart from fact dimension? Do you build other tables as well?
Uh, Basically, like flattening part, what we do is we try to like remove joints and like try to make make the table as a single table, like removing joints and other things, so that because when you use visualization tools like Tableau and QuickSight on tables that consist of a lot of joints, it doesn't
So
perform well.
yeah. So one of the main goals of flattened table or summary table is to avoid runtime load on the database, right? So that you can get the results quickly, right? So that way, if you have if you prepare the data or prepare the reports reporting data, this basically it's a what you call readily available, readily prepared data in advance. Okay, so that way you don't perform the join as you said on the fly, rather you build it in advance. Okay, so if you have the just like you say to give me the total, if the typical reports is asking question, give me the total sales by department by vendor, I could pre-build that data set, right? And right, that way the reports just picks up that value from the table, right? So basically prepare it in advance. That's why we create aggregate or summary tables. Flattening is a little different, but that's okay. So that's okay as long as the purpose basically fact dimension. That's one way to build the data mart so that reports can run. They can join and do that. Nothing wrong with that. But you can, in addition to that, you can also build summary tables, which are joining suppose sales table, product table, store table we have. Pre-join it, create the summary table, save it, so that you don't have to run do the join on the fly. It's ready. Okay, so combination of both, combination of fact dimension, which is your star schema, and summary tables, both will serve as your reporting platform. Okay, that's the kind of goal. It's not just one, both way. Some will not everything can avoid join. Some will avoid join. Some will have to do join. That's fine. That's what it's built for. Redshift is built for that. Okay. What happens if one day what do you do if my today's job fails and or my data is duplicate in the Redshift today? What do I do? I loaded it. I found out that data has been duplicated. Same data came in. Whatever was there yesterday, same data came in again. Think about it.
We
See, not
normally
every question will be available to you in advance, right? So you may think about it.
right. So to break the silence, actually, initially what I'll tell them is we normally remove all the duplicate, we take care of all the duplicate files from the raw layer itself. So normally we don't face this kind of situations, but if at all some duplicate files do come to the Redshift, then yeah, I think I will say yeah. So
So think about
basically, I
it. If
think
something has been loaded by duplicate, second time you loaded
no.
it, what do you do? What do you think about? What will you do first of all?
I'm saying it based out of my intuition, like I'm answering this question. So basically, here we basically basically maintain
Don't
version.
complicate it, right? You see, you're unnecessarily complicated a lot of stuff. Simply the data came in duplicate. Yesterday data came in again. I want to remove it. Simple as that, right?
Right.
If the data came duplicate, I want to remove it. Or there is duplicate data, I want to remove it, load the good one. That's as simple as that. Why are you, I mean, see, you're trying to solve it in the very indirect way, this, that complex. Approach the questions, problem straight on the head rather than making it too complicated. I think today you are making everything indirect and also make it straight, right? This is the answer. So data came in bad, I want to remove it. Simple thing. Now, how to remove it? That's a different question, right? That approach will come. But your goal is duplicate came, I want to remove it, right? So that's
Right.
your goal. How do you remove it? Okay, approach we can discuss. How to remove it? If bad data came in today, there has to be a process in the system to remove it, right? There's some approach, right? But the first thing is I have to remove it. Is it right or not? If the bad data came in, isn't that what you will do at the end of it? Think about
Right.
logically. If the bad data came in or duplicate came in, isn't that what you will do at the end? You have to remove it, right? Even if
Right.
you are a non-IT guy, what will you do it? You say, go
Yeah,
ahead and take it
removing
out.
it.
I want just take it out. Simple, right? That's a simple solution. Now, how to do it? You have the database. We have yesterday data, day before yesterday data. Everything is there. How do I know which one is today's data? How do you identify it? Then the question comes. If I identify which records are today's data, all I have to do is delete. I will delete statement, delete from this table where this is this, right? Then what is
Yeah.
that? So typically in all the batch runs, we have something called batch ID. For today's run, the batch ID is 101. Every data entry, wherever it goes with a batch ID called maybe 101 for today. Tomorrow is 102. So if you have to remove it, all I have to do is delete from this table where batch ID is 101. Delete from this table 101. So it will, that way it is very clean removal. You will not by mistake remove something good data. So that will be answer. So I'll go ahead and remove the data. So the approach we follow is there is, the way we insert the data, we always have batch ID. This is very common across industries. You don't have to say that. I'm just saying. I'm just telling you, just to let you all of you know. All the batch jobs are built across industry. Typically, they use something called some unique identifier. Could be a date, but date something sometimes could be mistaken. So they go with a batch ID. That means from all the way from inbound to your final layer, wherever you are putting some data, saving the data, it has a batch ID associated. So if you have to remove the end to end, you can remove everything by batch ID. Then it's completely clean. Then you start all over again. Okay. So that's your answer. So so you can say, hey, all our data inserts are associated with batch ID, so that we can go ahead and remove those duplicate data by batch ID, then restart again, then get the new data file and run the whole thing process again. Approach it
Right.
straight to the problem. What do you think? Don't try to complicate your solution, because many times 100% of the time solutions are not solution. The straight answers are simple, whether IT or non-IT. Bad data, I want to remove it. Simple thing. Now, how to remove it, that we can think about. But straight answer. Don't try to make it too complicated. Then what happens? You just keep going round and round and round. Then you'll be confusing yourself at the end. Okay. So change the approach. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Okay.
Actually, like I was like thinking in terms of versioning, like try to move to the previous version of the data you had.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
what I would have answered in some circumstances.
So how
Yeah.
you said you
Okay.
have wrote a lot of PySpark script? Is it PySpark or what type of jobs you are running?
So I have basically like developed as well as like maintained a
See,
lot of PySpark
until
scripts.
until now you are not saying glue job. See, I am asked a question. Okay, PySpark. I have built glue jobs, right? We have use glue jobs and EMR functions. Now you have up to whole sentence has gone. I have not heard about glue job yet. Why are you not going straight to the answer? Because all
Right.
of these levels are using glue jobs, right? You are
Right.
not writing
So
PySpark
like
by you, right? Either EMR or glue. So
I
go straight to the answer.
right.
Because
I would say that like I've developed PySpark scripts both on Glue and EMR based on the complexity of the job.
yeah, go straight answer. Don't try to, you know what I'm trying to get. You try to explain it different way, and you come to the actual point after 30 seconds. But that could come for right immediately, because you are complicating your situation if you are doing that, because it will become, then, first of all, interviewer will get bored if you are not answering directly. Second thing, it will also cause you problem uh, later on, right? So in the interview, if you are direct and to the point, that's always better. And you can talk it direct, then you can explain on top of it, but come to the answer directly. Okay. Then okay, so yeah, so you have built. Basically you are saying, hey, all this data, because all these modules you have written, they are actually glue jobs. We have built glue jobs, which is nothing but PySpark program, right? That's what I've done.
Right.
And you have written some. Why did you use EMR as well? You said, are you using both EMR and glue job or what?
Yeah, we do use EMR sometimes if we need more control over the memory that is needed to be used on PySpark, or we need the control
Your
over cluster.
sentence, your tense is we use sometimes. What does it mean? You have built a project. Do you mean it is already built? Project is already in production running. If you are talking in use sometimes, means what do you mean? Today we do EMR, tomorrow we don't, because they are already been built. So your tense of the sentence is wrong. Right? So see, there's a small things, but it matters, right? It's not built sometimes, right? So we have built, right? We have some EMR jobs as well as glue jobs. The ones which are complex, right? Complex and needs more user control or editor control. Those we have put it in EMR. Look at your tense. What you have completed your project. It's not in present tense anymore, or we are doing it, or you can say doing it, but it's not sometimes. There is not sometimes here, right? It's already built. And the other one glue job, we have some other jobs, we have quite a few glue jobs as well. Just straightforward, right? Okay. Then what's the difference between EMR and glue jobs? What do you think? How are they different? Both are PySpark. How are they different? What's the advantage, disadvantage?
Glue jobs are basically serverless. You simply write your PySpark code and you forget about it. Like provisioning of the servers and running the provisioning of servers and memory management, everything is done by the AWS. Whereas in case of EMR, you basically set up the clusters. You have
No,
complete
no,
control
no,
of.
no, 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 no. The fundamental difference is EMR is a managed Hadoop cluster in AWS. Whereas Glue is an ETL tool that leverages PySpark code. And of course, it's serverless.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
In EMR cluster, you can have Spark, Hive, HBase, whatnot. You can have anything, Pig script, everything. Whereas Glue is it is not a Hadoop cluster. It's an serverless ETL tool where you can write PySpark code for all your transformations.
Right.
Okay, that's the fundamental difference.
Right. Yes.
So one is a
So,
complete Hadoop cluster. Other one is just a ETL tool, right? EMR is a complete Hadoop cluster. You have so many things, right? But here is a ETL tool. Yes, in the context of PySpark, yes, one is PySpark here in serverless, other one is thing. But in context of PySpark, but as a service difference, that's much more, right? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, what's the difference between those two?
so so EMR is a complete Hadoop cluster where you have different services for Hadoop like MapReduce, like Hive, etc. Whereas Glue is a serverless ETL tool. Second thing is, in case of EMR, you have greater control over the cluster. You can create your own cluster based on your needs. Whereas in Glue, the servers are managed completely by AWS, and you have no control over it. So that's the main basic difference between those two.
What's the difference?
Third thing I may add, if you need other Hadoop services, yeah, in the initial I could have included. If you need other Hadoop services like Hive or HBase, etc., you cannot do it using Glue. At that time, you need to like provision EMR cluster for that.
Okay.
And one more thing, you can do performance tuning of PySpark jobs in case of EMR as you have greater control over the cluster. Whereas this cannot be done in case of Glue.
So, okay. What's the difference between what are you using? Are you using, so while you are writing the Glue jobs, are you using dynamic data frame or Spark data frame?
We have while
What's
writing
the
Glue
difference
jobs, we
between
have
dynamic data frame and Spark data frame? Do you know there are two different types of data frame? What have you been using?
I have mostly used Spark data frame while writing Glue jobs.
So what is the dynamic data frame? Do you know what's the difference or is there any advantage there?
I don't
Yeah, that you have to read.
remember.
I have asked you guys to read that thing and need to know. In fact, that was one question to Besang in his today's interview. Besang, that was a question, right? How do you create dynamic data frame in Glue?
Yes.
You need to know that. What is dynamic data frame? And what are the advantages? Have you gone through some?
We have mentioned everything in the document, right? Guys, please read the document. Those are very critical. Go word by word, understand. If you don't understand, ask questions. Otherwise, this will be a never-ending story.
Yeah, year-long story. Yeah, you continue otherwise.
Oh, trying my best. I'm listing down all these questions. So I'll make sure that by next session I'll be knowing answers to all this.
No. The point is the document is already provided. The document, everything is there.
Right.
Dynamic data frame is Glue context. Have you looked at a sample Glue jobs which is our you just Glue dynamic on? See, if I am somebody, I'll go search for dynamic data frame. Look at somebody else's code, how it is being developed. So compare to my thing, right? So that I can see the difference. Or search on, hey, what are the advantages of dynamic data frame? One search in Google will give you 10 different things, right? There are tons of content available. So the point is, I think I have mentioned earlier, probably what is the difference between Spark data frame and dynamic data frame? That question will definitely come. What are the advantages of using dynamic data frame? How do you create those? Just basics of those you need to know. Otherwise, you will say, hey, yeah, this guy has done Google data jobs and he doesn't know it. So I think we covered that if you have smaller data files, Right? How do there is a option within this dynamic data frame? There is a clause called, I believe, options or something. I don't forgot. There is options called group files or something. You can group the files, right? Yeah, group the files together, right? So those things you need to go into detail and get examples. Do not stay in the theory level. Okay, you get caught very easily. Okay.
Uh, right. I'll check that out. The dynamic data frame. I remember it was discussed earlier, but somehow I've forgotten it. But I'll go through it once again.
Glue job, definitely glue context, dynamic data frame, how to use it, advantages. That's very, very key and it's all the time. Okay. So what are the problems? Have you faced any problem during your any issues in your project? There's some background noise. Can someone go mute or Vijay from your side? Okay. So what's your? Is there any? Did you? What are the challenges you have faced in the project and how did you resolve it? Have
The
you faced
major problem that
Yeah, go ahead.
uh, sorry, yeah, the major problem that the major issue that we faced in our project was performance issues with our PySpark jobs. It was basically like memory issues and other performance issues, and we did like
Both the
work on
memory issues and
like
also slow, right? Slow running as well as see performance issues could be slow. Performance issues could be job failing, right? Both could be problem. Slowness is also a problem, right? If I'm expecting the job to come back in 5 minutes, running for 2 hours, that's also a problem, right? So just for you to know. Okay.
Right. So basically, we solved this issue by taking two approaches. The first thing that we tried was like code refactoring. That is like reviewing the code again and making few changes, like like using data frame if somewhere RDD was used as data frame or data set as like more optimized by default. We also like try to use coalesce over partition. If somewhere you have to reduce the number of partition, we use coalesce over repartition as coalesce is more optimized and uses less amount of reshuffling compared to repartition. Apart from that, we have we try to use serialized data format like Parquet or like Parquet serialized data format or columnar data format, columnar like Parquet and serialized data format like Avro. Apart from that, we also try to like avoid UDF functions and if possible replace it with inbuilt data frame APIs available in PySpark. We try using persisting and caching the data
You don't
into
see,
memory.
yeah,
And
okay. Yeah, that's okay. It's like performance tuning tips you are giving. So
these
the
are the like
question was right.
tips we take.
Question
Yeah,
was okay. Performance is what you solve. So you don't have to bring a list of things. That's okay. That's so the question was different, right? What are the challenges you solve it? But now you are giving all the tips of performance tuning. We not you have to go
uh,
that detail. You have to finish it up in three, 4 lines, right? Okay, there are the performance issues, right? So and one of the thing we did is what you call code refactoring. Things like we took care of we avoided select star. We converted any of the RDTs to data frame, right? Then we used repartitioning with the right column name and right number of partitions. These are some of the things, right? Some of the UDF functions we optimized or refactored some of the UDF functions. Just those points, right? We right the approach. What did you do to fix it, right? You are not going the whole laundry list of things. You probably might not have done that. That becomes more like a answer to a performance. So how is the generic? That your answer become very generic. Uh, did you probably do everything? Maybe, but it sounds like more the way you are saying. So maybe you just finish up. 3, 4. These are the things we did. What else did you do?
right.
What?
So apart from code refactoring, second thing that we do was we checked for was like memory management issues. Like we tried changing like offering more resources or changing the queue. on which
So
our
in glue
uh,
job, there is no way you can change the queue, right? It's completely serverless. So how did you manage any of these dynamic parameters? It's serverless, right? You have no control on this.
dynamic. In case we were working on EMR, then we also had the option of
Yeah,
changing the
exactly.
queue
That's
while
the reason I'm
running.
saying. So in glue job, primarily you play with the code, right? There is no way you can fix the dynamic parameters because those are completely serverless. But yes, in EMR case, you can talk about hey to use the right auto scaling configuration rules and all that. Choose the right configuration for the servers, we chose task node, all those stuff. Then the runtime parameters like executor memory and all that, right? Those also we try to optimize for right to provide the again there is no queue size here in typically in AWS because that's more on prem, right? Your EMR is your EMR. Nobody is sharing it anyway. It's typically. I mean, again, it depends what's the situation in your project, but you can talk about more on the executor memory, executor core, um, those kind of stuff. Is if you are talking about EMR. So yeah, both the cases you talk about EMR and here. And then any other challenges you had to you guys?
Uh, Apart from like performance issues, um, sometimes we used to get like um, copy of data inside the Redshift, which we had to remove based on the batch jobs, like the batch number of the batch jobs. So that was kind
Okay.
of another issue
Yeah,
that
you can
we
say that
normally
one
face.
as yeah, you can say that as the problem. Say, hey, we had to data duplicate issues, and this is how you remove it. Okay, start with the problem. So
And
you save the problem, right? Then you start going to the solution. So if there are duplicate data loads, and the way we resolve it is we had badge ID associated with all the loads, and that's how we remove it, right? And loading with large files, loading with smaller load of small files, those could be some of the issues you might talk about, right? Large files is slow, right? One of the way you can do that is copy to HDFS in EMR, then process it because reading the data file from S3, which is a network file system, is slower than reading the data from HDFS, which is a native to the EMR. If you're reading from HDFS, it's right there in the server. If you're reading from S3, S3 is a network storage somewhere else. So it will be slow, right? So that probably you can give an example to read large files, process large files, read large files. We went with EMR approach. There we have the file copied to Hadoop SDFS, and from there we process using PySpark. Right. That also you can give an example. Reading and processing large files. Solution is go to EMR, put the file in HDFS rather than in S3. Okay.
apart from that, can I mention this one also? Like while deploying our code for the production, sometimes we faced issues because of the volume of the data, volumetric issues of the data while deploying it to production.
What's the problem then?
I remember once, Vijay discussing about it that like we normally test our code with small amount of data, but whenever we move it for production, there are normally volumetric issues. Like handling huge amount of data, you will be getting those issues at that point.
What did you do?
So you have to manage a code in order to like adapt for those volumes of data.
What did you do to solve the problem?
Uh, okay, that one and I don't know the solution. Yeah.
Typically, these are all comes under testing, right? We do system testing, we do volume, performance testing, all the things. Typically, ideally, a project should do it. You don't run on a 10 records and you process 1 billion record. It never happens. Typically, people do stress test. They call it stress test, volume test to make sure in production it will run good. Typically, you don't jump to bigger data sets directly. Typically, the test is done. Even the QA, apart from data accuracy, also stress test or volume test is also done, which is called SAT, system acceptance testing. That also they do it typically. Have you been
SAT.
involved? Yeah, system acceptance testing. UAT is user acceptance testing, right? end-to-end
Yes.
integration test. There are a lot of testing.
What are your day-to-day activities?
Yeah.
So the first thing, once with the start of the day, the first thing we do is getting involved in Scrum meeting, where basically three things are discussed.
So why are you giving?
What
Why are you giving again? We get involved in Scrum meeting, right? So you are going what past participle tense again? It can be straight. You get in.
I meant
So again, I'm just saying,
me and
right?
my team.
Change your approach. That's my whole point is. Don't go around
Right.
the straight. We have Scrum meetings every day in the morning. Straightforward, right? We are involved. I get no. Why do you use that kind of tense? You are trying to get my point, right? By doing that, you are answering question in an indirect way. That loses its importance. Okay, it's a very, if you say we have Scrum meetings every day in the morning, straight. The first thing we do is, we have a Scrum meeting stand-up call. They call it Scrum meeting stand-up call every day at 9:30. We participate there, right? Then you go ahead. Anyway, these are some other tips. Don't try to be straight. Okay, that's my whole point. Okay, use the sentence which get to the thing. Okay.
I'll try to improve on it. I'll try to take care of that. Okay, let me say once again. So every day morning we have Scrum meetings where we basically discuss three things: what we did yesterday, what we are going to do today, and if there is any problems or issues that we are facing. Once the Scrum meeting is over, basically we pull our we check out our code from the Git repo and start working on our code. Once we are done and we have done all the development and we're done with the day, we basically check it in. So that way, basically the progress is saved, and if anyone goes on holiday or something, other team member can continue with it. During the development process, we work on our code and do all the development. Once it is done, we send it to the testing team for SAT and UAT testing. Once those while SAT and UAT testings are performed, we also provide support at that point. Once it is done, the code is deployed to the production.
You are not
So
doing
this is
SAT
how.
UAT every day, right? SAT UAT is a
No.
part of the process. You are not doing it every day. It may or may not happen. SAT UAT happens at the end of the project or module, right? You are not doing it every day. Yeah, okay. What
Right.
so, okay, so basically your stand-up call is there. You talk about what you did yesterday, what is to be done today and tomorrow, right? For today, right? Resolve the issues or any roadblock. You talk about that, right? You with your team. If you need any help or somebody some issue needs to be escalated, that also can be discussed, because it's not in a right. Then once you are done with your stand-up call, right? You check out the code, you do your development through the day. Typical development is like building new modules, doing system testing, maybe doing component testing, all that integration testing, right? And that goes on through the day. That's typical. And work with different stakeholders, maybe talk to business, talk to other developers. That's my typical day goes like that. And whatever task has been assigned, I work through that. And at the end of the day, we check in the code back again to the feature branch, right? So that's typical. So you are doing your job. You are building the code. You are checking out, checking in, building your code. You are discussing problems with, or you are collaborating. What you are trying to say, you are collaborating with other team members. You are discussing with business stakeholders. Sometimes you have a logic issue. You want to discuss with the business. Hey, you have given this logic. Is it right? It doesn't, or it's not right. That means business will come in. Okay, business will explain, like, this is how it is, right? So you have to show your collaboration. That means you are collaborating with other users, other developers, right? So it's just integration testing and all that stuff. Because at the end, your code will work with other people's code, right? They have to integrate, right? So the integration testing you might be doing as part of the development as well. So what you are
Right.
essentially showing is you are not working alone. You are doing collaboration. That's what it has to come out. Okay. What are the tools you have used? What are the tools you have used in your development? Any specific tools you have used? like IDs, anything like that, or any tools?
Yeah, like in my development, basically, I've worked with, I've mostly used tools like ID, like PyCharm. Apart from that, while using Git repo, we do use Git CLI for performing all our like Git repo tasks, like for checking and checking out the code.
Have you used Jenkins? Are you guys using Jenkins?
We do use Jenkins for like integrating and testing the code. Yeah.
Do you directly work with Jenkins or some other team work?
Sorry.
Do you directly work with Jenkins or is there some other team works on Jenkins?
Uh, we do like
But
we
we
are
talked about that, right? There is a DevOps team, right? The DevOps teams, there is a separate DevOps teams who do the code migration, code integration testing, right? That's a different team. Your job is to develop it, check it in. That's all. You are not
right.
directly, yes, there is Jenkins. Jenkins is typically done by the DevOps team, right? So
Right.
there is a separate DevOps team who manages all the code migration from different branches, doing the integration, testing, deploying it and deploying it and testing it, right? That's their job. But yes, we do use it. That's right. There's a different team who use it. So you just know it. You are using PyCharm for your standard PySpark development, and you are also using Git repo for the team is using Git repo for code management and reversioning. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Are you good with Python?
Yeah, I'm good with Python. I have good command over Python.
Have you done um, object-oriented Python programming or plain programming?
Uh,
Object-oriented Python.
I've done both, like object oriented as well as like plain also.
So you have built classes and classes and all that stuff in Python.
Yeah, I have built classes. I worked with Python classes.
Okay, okay, you have done that. Which, no, you have built classes, right? You know what I'm asking,
Yeah.
right? You have built like Java classes and all that. You have built all those things in Python. Maybe you have done that, but
Yeah.
that's the what are the common libraries you have used in Python?
Um, Most common being pandas library and NumPy. Apart from that, sometimes matplotlib for visualization and seaborn too.
Okay, okay, okay. So these are guys. These are some of the pandas and NumPy are very common. You can tell that. But apart from that, as part of the you can say as part of the PySpark development, we have used PySpark specific libraries, right? There are specific some libraries used in PySpark as well. Those libraries are also primarily what you are saying. It's you know the library concept of library. Pandas, NumPy, these are very common. Even if you have never done it, look at it. Just couple of those pandas and NumPy. Okay. So pandas. So, have you used pandas?
Uh,
Okay. So how do I? What are the different types of collection data types in Python?
in Python, you basically have list, tuples, and set as collection data types. And if you use NumPy also, you can go for arrays too. Yeah.
What's the difference between list and tuple?
List, like tuple is immutable, but list you can modify, like add elements and etc. Whereas tuple is immutable. Apart from that, for defining a list, you need a square bracket, whereas in case of tuple, you use braces or common bracket.
Okay. What is a Spark system? Why do you do? Have you
Uh,
used? Yeah.
Yes, Spark session is basically a entry point into the cluster. It was basically defined, like it was introduced in Spark 2.0 and it also it basically encompasses all like Spark context,
I don't have to go into
Spark
that.
context,
Yeah,
SQL
I don't have to
context.
go.
Okay,
Just straightforward, right? Okay, that's all. Yeah, that's a bit sufficient. Don't try
okay,
to make a complete essay on that. Um,
right.
so, all right. So how do I create a Spark system?
You have to first import PySpark, then from PySpark import
Import
Spark
PySpark.
session.
There is no import PySpark, right?
Yeah, I have been doing it.
No, no,
Like
import
first
what?
I write import. Sorry.
What is the import statement?
You can simply write import PySpark, that will work, or you can write like this: from PySpark import Spark session. I have seen that on Spark by examples.
Is it part of a .sql library? PySpark.sql or PySpark alone? Anyway.
No, PySpark. You can import Spark session from simply PySpark. You need PySpark SQL library if you're importing functions.
Okay, I thought Spark session is part of PySpark. Dot.
No, it's not part of Spark SQL. Just let me
Okay,
check
maybe.
once.
So how do I
But I'm
create?
very sure because I've been doing it actually. So
Okay.
yeah.
How do I
So
create it?
in order to create it, you have to first give a name to your session, which we normally give this as Spark, and then you have to write Spark session dot builder. Then after that, you have few more options, like you can set master, where you can set local, or you can provide the path to your master, or you can provide app name, and then finally dot get or create.
What are the different APIs you have used in Spark?
Spark APIs most commonly we have used select, filter, with column renamed, where, drop, order by, sort, group by, etc.
Have you used Spark SQL for your data integration or per module, or have you used Spark SQL or mostly Spark's API?
Because of my organization's requirement, we have mostly used Spark API, but yeah, I do have some experience. I've worked with Spark SQL also.
How do I read a from Hive in Spark?
There are basically two ways. You can directly read a Spark SQL, like spark.sql. Then inside the bracket, you can write select star from database name dot name of the table. So that is one way. Or else you can read it as like using Spark session, like spark dot read dot table, and data inside the bracket you have to write database name dot table name.
Basically using the read API. Okay, so that's okay. You can say
Yeah.
that I'm using the read API. Have you used date functions in Spark API? Date functions. How do I find a difference between two dates? Because there is a start date
Difference.
and end date, right? Something, right? I want to find the difference between two date fields. Do you know is there a readily available API function for that?
Yeah, you actually have you have a proper API for date function where you can like add date or like add or subtract dates and months, etc.
Okay. So do you know what it is? Just you can say, yeah, there are functions, but probably I don't remember it. I think it's one is date diff and date sub. Okay. Sorry, date sub and date add, I believe. Okay. Something like that.
Right.
But if you
I
remember it,
remember
okay. But
actually
you can say
adding
yes,
months.
there are available. There are functions available. There are APIs. I don't remember it. But yes, you can do that.
Right.
Can I? How do I convert? Can I change a string to date in Spark API? Date is coming in string. I want to convert it to a.
Yeah, Radhikant, I need to drop. I will catch up with you later. Okay.
Okay. Okay. How do I convert the string to date?
you have to basically import the date function from PySpark.sql.function, something like date sub. I think that's the name of the function. And then if you want to like change the string date into date function, then you can like do so like with dataframe.with column. You can like rename give it a new name like date format. Then you can write date sub, and inside date sub you can mention the string column like data frame dot string column.
Sorry, I didn't hear. I just repeat that again. So, are you using any?
Yeah, sure. I can repeat it again in short. Basically, you need a function like date. I think it's the date function. You have to import the date function, and inside the date function, you have to mention data frame dot the column name of the string date. Yes.
No, you are converting a string to. See, the format is different. Okay, the date. Okay, maybe I may talk to you in the wrong way. The date is coming in a different format. Right. So I have to convert the date is coming in maybe MMDDYY, but I have to convert it to a date format like YY dash MM dash DD. How do I do that? I have to change the format of it from regular something to actual date format. Like for example, in Hive, the date format is YY dash MM dash DD. If you don't have the date in that format, it will not insert. Suppose you are inserting to the Hive table which has a date field, and if you don't put in the right format, it will cause problem, right? So now the data you got it from the file didn't come in that format. Now you have to convert it. How do I do that? Without converting, if I put it, then it could cause problem, right? It will give bad value. So
Right.
look at
I think you have a yeah.
there is two date function. There is two date functions. There is a Unix timestamp function. So there is something I think I talked about. But look at that thing, how to convert. So basically, you can convert to Unix timestamp. Then you convert do a two date. There are 2-3 steps are there, but you can do it. You can write a function, not a function, but it can be done in one step. But yeah, there are 2-3 things you have to do. I don't know whether I've looked at it. There may be the people might. These are very common questions. Date formats are very common questions. Let me see. I can show the screen. I think I've showed you guys one time, but I don't know whether you guys looked at it. But change date format in PySpark. See here he is doing okay. So he got the data like this. 11 slash 25 99, right? So there is no such date format in this is not supported in the regular, right? This is a which I will consider it as a string, character string. Now to convert that, I'm saying Unix timestamp, take that date string, which is probably this, and converting to Unix timestamp into this YYMMDD because this is came in as YYMMDD. Right. Then I don't know how it is doing it here.
Can we like simply like cast it to date type?
No, just simply casting. How will it work now? That will work only for other stuff. But yes, that's another question. If I have a string, I want to convert to integer, that's okay. But if you have other things like these, then you have to just converting what do you call changing the casting is not going to solve make it work. So there is casting, but only after you to date. Okay, so to date. So first you convert to Unix timestamp. Then you apply to date. There are many ways, so that's why it's there are many ways, but to date, alias date. So simply if the data is coming already in YYYMMDD, all you have to do is string to you convert to make to date, right? That's straightforward because the data is already coming in that format, right? Data is already coming in YYMMDD and it's a string. All you have to do is say to date. When you apply to date, it becomes date right away. But if it's not coming in that format, instead of YYMMDD, it's coming DDMMYY, YY/MMDD. What do you do? Then those cases you have to do in 2-3 steps. There you have to say Unix timestamp. You have to put it in that format first, something like that. Then once you do that, then from Unix timestamp, so there are 2-3 steps. Okay, that's something. So once it is converted to Unix timestamp, then from that Unix timestamp, you are there should be a date function here. Okay, anyway, something you have to practice in the actual thing. We have to see this is not. But there are 2-3 steps. But again, something you guys need to look at. I don't see the right example here, or maybe that's the one you have to do it in the maybe your virtual machine and see how it works. Okay, then you'll get a feel of it.
Oh.
To date, DDMMYY. Look at many examples. Why don't you look at many examples and see how to do that? Okay. This is very common question: how to convert, deal with date formats. Okay, there are several questions around it, so look at those things. Just search on it, look a lot of answers, see how the other people are doing it. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's all for today. Maybe we can discuss tomorrow. Maybe we can. Godson, are you ready for tomorrow? We'll do.
I don't have any problem. I'll attempt tomorrow.
Okay. No. Can we do mock-up for you tomorrow?
Okay.
Did you say cannot attend or you can?
I can.
Okay, so we're going to do mock-up for tomorrow. We'll have different set of questions. Okay, not the same one, different type of. So that way we cover for different type of question for different regular.
So I've tried to memorize these questions. Oh, you're going to change it on me now?
What? Yeah, we are changing everything because it's not going to be the same, right? So we'll come back with new different questions. Juliet, you are slowly getting it right. Again, Juliet, the approach is to give your overview. Who are you? What are you doing in the last? So of course your resume will be built. It's not built yet. Then you are going deep dive into the project. Then you are able to the technical questions, the project, the data flow, different technologies you are using. Right? It could be anything. Right? You are going as a AWS data engineer, right? You need to be very, very thorough. Okay. So Juliet, you are good. You are able to hear, right? Just want to make sure. Okay, Juliet, we can't hear you. I think your microphone is bad, but that's okay. So we'll come to Juliet to you. Who else? Okay, Besong, anyway we did it yesterday. We did with Besong. He does an interview today. Juliet, maybe we'll do your overview and all that day after tomorrow. Okay, Friday maybe. So that you got a glimpse of it. Why don't you prepare? Just a basic thing. I'll send out some. I think I have not sent you the details. Let me send out some details. The documents which I have shared with others, so that you can start preparing those. Okay. Yeah. Let me send out some document details.